riskier side of life. The Todd Starnes Commentary.
Earlier this week, I told you about the war on Christmas at Shaw Air Force Base in South Carolina. Acting on a recommendation from the Pentagon, they ordered a nativity scene be dismantled after the Military Religious Freedom Foundation filed a complaint. The MRFF is an organization that relishes any opportunity to eradicate Christianity from the military. And they have a hotline to the Pentagon. But I have a hotline to you. And I've been told that thousands of our listeners called to demand the nativity be returned. And the military heard your demands. As of noon today, the nativity will be relocated to the base chapel. It's high time Americans stand up and say enough is enough. As my friend Tony Perkins from the Family Research Council says, it's a sad state of affairs when the Air Force has to create a demilitarized zone for the baby Jesus. I'm Todd Starnes.
So he killed his uncle? Tough crowd, tough family. I wonder what Dennis Rodman has to say about that. Kim Jong-un killing his uncle, leader of North Korea. Total whack job, by the way. Well, that's not nice, but it's true. And that's what we do here, nothing but truth. Yeah, it shows. We've talked about this with Gordon Chang. Welcome back. Crane Does Nothing But Truth. Proudly on. Say it with me now, AFR Talk. Normally during this time, we speak to our good friend, Pastor Aaron Free. But he could not be with us today because he's with his family. All good. And so I miss him. And I miss him a lot. But he'll be back next week. So fear not. Pastor Free will return. It is truly awesome to have him on. And we're going to hit some of the subjects that we do hit with Pastor Free. Back to the nut bar in North Korea, that being the leader of North Korea killing his uncle. This is what two books on it. And that is, Gordon Chang talked about the fact that he has to consolidate power. It's a very paranoid society. A Mandela could not exist in North Korea. He'd be dead. Gandhi would be dead. It's only through Western societies, specifically ones really based in a Judeo-Christian foundation, that allow for people to have a conscience, to express that, to be heard. That's a point that Bruce Thornton made, who joins us tomorrow at the top of the hour to close out the show. I thought it was a brilliant point, as we, especially in light of what we see out of Putin attempting to claim the moral high ground. Through the looking glass, people. Through the looking. That means up is down, black is white. Dogs and cats living together, mass hysteria. But nothing really funny about it. And please don't take my comments as me joking about what goes on in North Korea or any other place where there is oppression. We've got serious, serious problems. Thank you, Captain Obvious. What about our problem with Iran and the advancing deal and some of the statements that John Kerry, Secretary of State, made the other day during his hearing, and how we are going to verify anything coming from a regime that is second only to Al-Qaeda with the amount of American blood they have on their hands. Well, John Kerry, and for that matter, President Obama, spoke to the issue of verification and being able to verify the deal. And this is after President Obama said, hey, we have a chance at peace here. We can do something. And sure enough, what do we have? We have what Ryan Morrow had pointed out when I asked him, why is it that they're moving ahead with the deal? Is this something, are they willfully blind, naive? And Ryan said, no, they think our intelligence is good enough that if they violate the deal, if they keep moving toward a nuclear weapon, we'll know and we'll be able to stop everything. They believe that. It's not something that I have much confidence in, but here's what the president said. Roll it.
It's not as if there's going to be a lot of capacity to hide the ball here. We're going to be able to make an assessment because this will be subject to the P5+1 and the international community looking at the details of every aspect of a potential final deal. And we're consulting with all our friends, including Israel, in terms of what would that end state look like. And if we can't get there, then no deal is better than a bad deal. But presuming that it's going to be a bad deal, and as a consequence, not even trying for a deal, I think would be
going down the wrong road, in essence. He wants to try for the deal. Now, we have an administration that says we need to enforce these sanctions that we have. That'll keep them in line because that got them to the table, right? But don't put additional sanctions on. Take off sanctions, and those are the sanctions were the only thing that really brought Iran to the table. It doesn't make much sense to me. It's convoluted thinking, and it's part of, I believe, a hubris that the president has in his ability to talk to people and make a rational argument and bring peace. And it comes from delusion of looking at your enemy and not seeing them for what they are, but what you want them to be. And then, as stated, overestimating your skills to be able to talk them or negotiate with them. When we're dealing with nuclear weapons, missile technology that is continued to be developed along with North Korea, and the statement of the president that he just made about how we'll be able to verify things, they still have secret sites. They're still developing, and they've claimed the right to enrich and to continue to enrich, and the deal doesn't do anything to dismantle. It's a bad deal, and it's especially a bad deal when you send the signal that you have in light of Egypt with Morsi supporting a dictator, but he had an election. So did the Soviet Union. They had their premiers got 99% of the vote. Doesn't mean that they believe in freedom. One election, one time. That's what they believe in a democracy. We need leaders to speak to individual freedom. Speak to what Natan Sherinsky spoke to. And why do I say this, and why is it important? Because until we do that, until we actually start living up, our president lives up to the leader of the free world, we are not going to see things go in the right direction, and they continue to go in the wrong direction. When people are speaking up for their freedom, be it in Russia, be it in the Ukraine, be it in elements of a particular movement with Syria, and I'm not talking about Al-Qaeda, and I'm not talking about the regime, I'm talking about the elements in between, or in Egypt, with the idea of the Muslim Brotherhood, we don't have credibility and the support for that. And we're too willing to throw our allies under the bus in order to embrace our enemies with the idea of hope. I talked about this yesterday with non-conflict. When you point out something that's wrong, you often become what the problem is because nobody really wants to deal with it. And these things have a big time quickening of impact. Everybody says they're distant. What is the real result? But then when they have the nuke, everybody says, why didn't you do something? George Bush spoke to this many times during his presidency. And for all the things that you could say about George W. Bush as a leader, he was able to recognize in certain areas good and evil and be very clear on it. One thing that has plagued administrations in this country is not looking at Israel in the same way that we look at ourselves when it comes to the enemy being Islamists or Khomeinists, however you want to put it, Islamic terrorists, people who desire a worldwide caliphate and the removal of the little Satan, as it's been described, as Israel, and the big Satan, us. We've mucked up the waters big time by buying into the notion that this is a conflict and they just need to get together and concessions need to be made. No, I totally disagree. And until we recognize that, we will continue to undermine slowly or more quickly, advancing it, as this administration has done, Israel's security. We need to be clear. And that freaks out a lot of people because we think of the consequences of being clear would be worse than going down a convoluted road. And quite frankly, the butcher bill is historically much greater when you go down the road of having a willful blindness to your enemies and tolerating things that inevitably will come back and hurt your allies by killing them, as well as hurt yourself by killing us. And that's the reality. There are many ways to go there. Another thing is, when people look at the Iran deal and what's being said, it doesn't pass the smell test. Speaking of the smell test, Benghazi and the Mideast, a New Hampshire congresswoman's refusal to address the issue in a town hall. This is very interesting. Representative Ann Custer, sure you've heard this story, Democrat, New Hampshire. She is speaking at a town hall focused on the Middle East and issues concerning the Middle East. And the first question is, well, roll it.
Okay, first, can we please let me know your position on House Resolution 36 that will authorize the Select Committee to get to the bottom of Benghazi? I don't have, it's a Senate, I think, I don't think we have anything about that in the House.
Yes, you do.
Yes, and the rest of this is also in Benghazi. So,
Can you address Benghazi? What are you going to do about Benghazi? Why isn't Benghazi at the top of your issue?
well, I'm certainly not here to talk about it. We're here to talk about the Middle East.
That is the Middle East.
Libya is like right in the middle of the Middle East.
Benghazi is the Middle East.
Well, when I hear this, I think to myself, well, she's there to speak about Israel, the Middle East, and arguably, yeah, it's part of the Middle East, North Africa, whatever, however you want to put it. I think there is a serious blind spot when somebody is asked about something like Benghazi, and this is the disconnect that so many in Washington have. They don't get the fact that when Americans are slaughtered and we're lied to about it, that it just doesn't go away because they've been able to manipulate the process or have 4 different investigations as opposed to one, and they think it goes away because it's not on the front page and there's not news being made on a daily basis. They think it goes away because Laura Logan has a bad guest that was turned out to be not a fraud in essence, in the sense of what he was saying, but doesn't change the fact that the president lied to us 60 Minutes, back to that organization, had the information directly, could have released it at the debate after he told the lie when they asked him specifically, was this a terrorist attack? And he refused to call it that on September 12th. So as you look at that and you say September 11th he's claiming, and then September 12th in the interview with Steve Croft, they released that tape in kind of a back channel way 2 days before the election, where it doesn't get the coverage it should, and then you have the talking points and erasing references to Al-Qaeda, and then claiming and blaming it on the video. This is not going away. This is part of the problem, big time in America. And I don't say that as a conservative Christian American. I say that as an American. And you should be upset about this as well. Because the Congresswoman, I know, I believe the union leader is coming out with something in New Hampshire talking about how it was focused on Israel. I just saw a headline on that to see the justification for it. Her response, no. When you're asked about this, you better have an answer if you're representing us in Congress, whether you are a Democrat or a Republican. And you better be able to answer the question of why we don't have answers yet and what you're doing to change that specifically. It's not a Republican Democrat issue. It's an American issue without hyphens, and it's not going away. You speak to saying how much you love the troops and you support our men and women who support us by protecting us, and you have this, and somehow people think this has gone away. It's like the IRS scandal in a way, but that's getting some follow-up at times, but not really if you look the backstory there about how the FBI is not interviewing 41 of the organizations according to their representation when it comes to the persecution under the IRS scandal. There's a lot here. You notice something here? It's 56 after the hour, and I'm sitting here, and I'm trying to get it all squeezed in here just to reference it so you all know we're not letting go. Buzz Jacobs will be back on. We're going to have him on before the end of the year. We may have him on twice because he is doing the movie on Benghazi 9/11, Benghazi9-11.com. You can check it out. We are going to cover these issues because they need to be covered because we still haven't gotten answers. And as an American, you should demand that. It also should frustrate you greatly when it comes to cut number 4, when David Axelrod continues to dodge the lie that Obama told, our president told to us. And here he is. Do we have cut 4 ready? Roll it.
I think part of it is being honest about it, and he has been honest about it. Part of it is getting it fixed as best that you can. There's no doubt that is at the core of the problem when you come to this measure, and I think he was ill-served because I'm sure when he said what he said, he believed it when they put the grandfather clause in. He believed that would take care of these kinds of transitional problems. It didn't. And, I think the real lesson here is don't ever speak in absolutes, because there's always going to be an exception, and that exception is going to become an example that your opponents lift up. And in this case, there were many examples.
David Axelrod is playing a game here. The president, there is evidence, it has been documented and spoken to, that he did know people were going to lose it. This wasn't just speaking in absolutes and he didn't know. He did know. That's the unfortunate part. And they don't own it. They keep saying, oh, you could have done it better and it'll be used against you politically. Yeah, I understand politically how it's going to be used. But just because you put political in the conversation doesn't mean the fact that we were misled on healthcare, on Benghazi. I can go on, but focus in on healthcare here, and it's still spinning it. Just enough where people say, who are not informed on the issue, it's just politics. It's a great dodge. It's like saying, I just want everybody to get together and do the right thing and make Washington work, how they're trying to spin the compromise on the budget when the budget wasn't about really compromise. It was a détente when it comes to the budget issue, in which negotiation-wise, as well as a way to raise taxes more easily, they put language in that served the left more than the right, the Dems more than the Republicans in this case. So as the spin continues, we're going to bring you the truth. David Freddoso, Washington Examiner, Conservative Intelligence Briefing, will be with us to discuss the split within the Republican Party, highlighted by Boehner's criticism today of the far, quote-unquote, right. Crane Durham's Nothing But Truth, AFR Talk.